Rapper Nipsey Hussle's alleged was attacked on his way to court. Eric Holder's attorney tells TMZ that he was attacked by two people while in a holding cell. Holder needed 3 staples after being cut with what's believed to be a razor. He also may have lost consciousness during the attack.
Ooh, the updates coming out of prison are getting crazy. New footage just dropped. And it looks like NP's killer, Eric Holder, is catching some serious heat behind bars. The streets ain't playing, and let's just say prison revenge hits different when you're dealing with those rules, so we all know the devastation that Nipsey Hussle death caused. It rocked the music industry, his community, and his fans like a ton of bricks. But what's been happening to the guy who took his life, Eric Holder? Honestly, no one could have predicted this mess, and it's way more chaotic than anyone thought. It's like watching a real-life warning unfold, where the consequences go way beyond just the courtroom. Eric Holder, the guy convicted of killing Nipsey, got slapped with a jaw, dropping 60 years in prison on paper. That's justice, right? But trust, the punishment started way before that. Sentence was even handed down.
Back here at home, hip-hop star Nipsey Hussle was down in 2019, and today his killer, Eric Holder Jr., was sentenced to 60 years to life. The judge said the sentence balanced the mental health of the defendant with the devastation caused to the victims and their families.
Rumors have been swirling about a shootout targeting Eric's family, with claims of some major losses in the aftermath. And as if that wasn't enough, there's talk that anyone who dares to visit him, or even be associated with him, could be putting themselves in serious danger. It's like Nip. Memory has this invisible net of vengeance surrounding it, making sure the cost of betrayal is high. As for Eric's family, yeah, they're apparently doing everything they can to stay out of the mess and avoid the bloodshed. And then prison. Let's just say it's been anything but smooth sailing. For Eric's stories about mistreatment and make his time behind bars sound like a nightmare, some people thought he'd be safe because of his gang ties. But clearly, that's not the case. In fact, back in 2022, Eric got jumped in prison by 2 inmates. And it wasn't just a regular beatdown. Nah, they slashed him with a razor. Dude ended up unconscious, had to get 3 staples in his head, and walked around with bruises all over his face. People like Mob James said these things could happen, and they were right.
When he go to prison, what the he gonna do?
Well, he's gonna be in PC.
You can get touched in there too. So my only thing, and I hope this dude hear me, the only thing you can do is sharpen you some and keep your back to the wall and say, it. You ain't coming home, so it. Anything come near you, even if they don't open their mouth, stab their motherfucking ass. Cause
here's the crazy part, he didn't even see it coming. He was just sitting in a holding cell with 13 other inmates, probably thinking about his next move, when bam, he's attacked from behind. His lawyer said the attackers didn't say a word, they just went in on him. Why? Well, no one really knows. But you know, the streets have their own code, and Nip's name hits hard everywhere. Despite that vicious attack, Eric showed up to court the very next day with his head stapled up and looking all messed up. Now, don't get me wrong, it's hard to feel bad for him, especially considering what he did. Let's not forget, this is the same guy who took Nip life in cold blood. What really makes this tough to stomach is how much Nippy meant to his community. Even the LAPD respected him for working to bridge the gap between the streets and the police. Nippy wasn't just another rapper, he was a leader.
We would like to read a letter from the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama, sent in regarding the life and celebration of Nipsey Hussle.
Even President Obama spoke on how important Nippy was to the world. His death brought gangs together to discuss peace. Think about that. Nip influence was so powerful, it literally made people rethink their approach to the streets. Eric might have taken Nipsey's life, but he could never take away Nipsey's legacy. That's something that's going to live on forever. One former inmate, Bravo, the bag chaser, even talked about a brutal incident during Eric's transfer, showing just how bad things have been for him.
I remember the day I left to Delano in the bus when we all got chained up. Caught the chain. It was March 29th. You'll never guess who was on that bus with me.
Who?
Eric Holder. I killed Nip. Swear to God. On everything I he was right there on the same bus, and it's crazy because I'm chained up. I'm with a few homies. I'm with a homie from 60s too.
Yeah.
And then so I'm like, but he's in the cage though. He's like, he was PC'd up. So he was in the cage, but he was in the last cage, and I'm sitting right here. So like his cage is right here. And then I see him just look back on everything I love. And I'm like, what the f? I'm high too, mind you, I'm faded. So I'm like, what the f? And I tell the homie, I'm like, hey, I'm like, bro, I think that's old boy. He's like, and he look at me like kind of disrespectful, like, man, you tripping, you high, like, you off drugs, like, you feel me? And then I was just like, all right, bam, I go bang on his window, boom, boom, boom. He looks back, everybody on the bus like, what the f? I swear to God. And then he's like, you Eric Holder? He's like, yeah, it's crazy. Like, everything I love, he got on and some more shit, spit on.
They were spitting on him in the bus?
Man, shit, hell yeah, squirting on the.
While some people are saying he's getting exactly what he deserves, others can't help but wonder if this is the beginning of the end for Eric. Not because of parole or anything, but because revenge and justice seem to be mixing into something way more dangerous. NP's impact was massive. He was loved, respected, and admired, not just in his hood, but across the entire rap game. Eric probably didn't realize just how far Nipsey's influence would stretch, or how deep people would go to protect his memory. But you need to realize one thing: when Eric Holder pulled that trigger, it wasn't just a crime. It was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Rumors exploded about payback, and it wasn't looking pretty for Eric or his family. Word on the block was that his family got caught in the crossfire, literally. Some unverified reports claimed at least 2 of Eric's relatives might have been taken out or shot at as revenge for Nippy. Official receipt nowhere to be found. But you know how the streets work. The rumor mill doesn't need a fact cheer. And things got even spisher when Tarek Nash, the LA native, who's always got something to say, chimed in. Tarek didn't just stop at calling Eric a snitch. He straight up accused him of being tied to other crimes. Oh, and he even dropped a photo he claimed was linked to the death of one of Holder's relatives, Messy. Right now, while all this drama unfolded, the LAPD was out here scrambling, patrols were ramped up. But honestly, how do you stop a tidal wave of whispers? And if that wasn't enough, some folks started throwing around wild theories claiming Eric didn't act alone. They said he might have been a pawn in a much bigger Messier game. Enter Big U. Yep, his name got dragged into the mix too. If you didn't know, Big U used to be tight with Nippy. But things went south when Nippy decided to go independent.
Originally sentenced 56 years.
56 years.
They was only able to sentence me to 23.
And you ended up doing 13?
You know, then 13.
So what did you get 56 years for?
Someone from the Rolling 60 gang hinted that this fallout might have played a role in the whole situation. Wild, right? But let's keep it real. None of that speculation changes the cold, hard fact: Eric Holder pulled the trigger for a lot of people. That's the only thing that mattered. But karma wasn't done with Eric. During his trial, Eric's time in jail turned into a nightmare. He got attacked again. 2 inmates jumped him and left him with a razor slash on his head, a swollen face, and one busted eye. It was so bad that the judge had to call off court for the day. And here's the kicker: Holder was supposed to be kept separate during transport. But clearly someone dropped the ball. All of this goes back to that tragic day in 2019 when Eric walked up to Nippy outside the Marathon clothing store and shot him 11 times. The moment was caught on camera, showing Holder kicking Nippy in the head after he was already down.
The first video began. Before the alleged shooter killed Nipsey, he reportedly got into a heated conversation with the Grammy Award-nominated rapper.
That footage shook law in the world. Nippy wasn't just another rapper. He was a force for change. And Eric, well, he made sure the streets and the world would never forget him for all the wrong reasons. From the beginning, Eric Holder's legal team had one mission to make. The jury believed this wasn't premeditated. His lawyer painted as a heat of passion situation, claiming Nippy accused Eric of being a snitch, an accusation that can light up the streets.
This is a case about heat of passion, and I'll get to that in a minute. But let's get to first things first. On March 31st, 2019, Eric Ronald Holder Jr. shot and killed Nipsey Hussle on Slauson and Crenshaw in front of the clothing store.
But here's the twist: Eric and Nippy weren't random strangers. They grew up in the same neighborhood, both tied to the Rolling 60s Crips. This wasn't a cold encounter, it was personal, and everything unraveled in the blink of an eye.
Cuz was walking up to you guys, and Nipsey says, I wonder how this is going to play out. Right? You heard him say that kind of to himself in a way. So then Shitty Cuz starts to talk to you guys. Well, starts talking to Nipsey, right? He's not talking to you at all.
Nipsey's close friend Herman Cowboy Douglas gave a chilling account of what went down just moments before the shooting. He said Nippy casually mentioned a rumor that Eric had been cooperating with the cops. Eric seemed unfazed at first, brushing it off. But 10 minutes later, the world lost Nippy. Forever, what's interesting is that Eric's ex-girlfriend, Brian Nicholson, unintentionally became a key player in this story. She testified that she had driven Aeon to the plaza where Nipsey's Marathon store was located. She overheard Eric confront Nippy asking, "Did you say I snitched?" What followed was chilling. Eric got in the car, loaded his gun like it was nothing, and made Benita circle the block after parking in an alley. He calmly ate his chai cheese fries before walking off. Moments later, gunshots echoed. Eric ran back, guns in hand, and shouted for her to drive away. Renita didn't realize the magnitude of what happened until she saw the news. That night, imagine knowing someone for just a month and being dragged into one of Ella's darkest moments. Nipsey's older brother, Black Sam, sat down with Big Boy for an emotional interview. He shared a haunting detail about that fateful day. Nipsey's usual safety measures weren't in place.
That was the ride to the hospital, man. Just praying and, I was confident bro was gonna be good, man. And just couldn't understand it, man. Just like the Twilight Zone after that. Everything I believed in, or my faith in, shattered.
Sam explained that there was always someone armed at the door whenever Nippy visited the Marathon store. But that day, no one was on guard. Nippy, casually dressed in shorts, wasn't his usual alert self. Eric's movements added to the eerie vibe, according to Sam. Eric first approached Nippy shirtless, almost as if he were scoping out the scene. Then he left and returned wearing a red shirt, a major red flag in their area. Sam suggested Eric deliberately put on the red shirt to confuse onlookers and make his actions seem unrelated to local gang politics. To Sam, this wasn't a heat-of-the-moment crime. It was cold, calculated, and devastatingly precise. That tragic day at the Marathon store left Nippy shot 11 times and 2 others injured. Eric Holder's actions captured on video, including the harrowing moment he kicked Nippy in the head, shocked not just LA, but the entire world. Nipsey's death wasn't just a loss. It was a seismic shift that revealed the deep-seated issues plaguing the community. His story continues to resonate not just as a tragedy, but as a call to understand the complexities of loyalty, reputation, and violence in the streets. So here's how it went down. Eric Holder was sentenced to 60 years to life in prison after being found guilty of first degree for Nipsey Hussle's death. That verdict came in on July 6, 20,122. And let's be real, the sentence was heavy, as it should be given the weight of what he did. But that wasn't all. Eric was also convicted on 2 counts of attempted voluntary manslaughter and possession of a firearm. He pled not guilty to everything. But the jury wasn't buying his story when it came to Nippy, interestingly, though they did clear him of attempted charges tied to the 2 men injured in the shooting. After the sentencing, Eric's lawyer Aaron Jansen spoke out. He was disappointed and said they planned to appeal. I mean, it was always going to be a tough fight, considering how public this case was, but Jansen did find a small win, saying they were at least relieved Eric wasn't convicted on the attempt charges. He felt those accusations were a bit too much for NP's family, especially his brother Sam. It wasn't really about the legal side of things. Their focus was on the massive loss they experienced. Nippy wasn't just a musician, he was a leader, a brother, and a source of hope in a community that needed him. Sam talked about this during an interview with Big Boy. And it's clear Nipsey's absence left a hole not just in his family, but in the culture he was so passionate about lifting up now. Even though Eric claimed he didn't premeditate it, he admitted to shooting Nippy. His lawyer argued that while he pulled the trigger, it wasn't planned. But regardless of the argument, The damage was done. As for Nippy, he was everything. Eric wasn't a light in the darkness. Nipsey Hussle, born Hermes Joseph Askedom, was all about giving back to his community. He wasn't just making music. He was making moves from creating jobs to supporting local businesses. Nippy was deeply invested in uplifting the same streets he grew up on. In fact, just days before his death, he was working with the LAPD on ways to reduce gang violence. Nipsey's career was incredible. He started out with his mixtape Sloss and Boy Volume 1, which got him noticed and landed him deals with Cinematic Music Group and Epic Records. From there, he dropped iconic projects like The Marathon and Kensaw Remember, when Jay-Z bought 100 copies at $100 each. That moment cemented Nip's status as a game changer. Then came his debut album Victory Lap in 2018, and it was a massive hit. It even got a Grammy nomination for Best Round Album. After his passing, Nipsey's legacy only grew stronger. He won posthumous Grammys for Racks in the Middle and Higher, a true testament to his talent and impact. But Nipsey's life wasn't just about the music. Growing up in Cost Outlaw, he faced his share of challenges. He joined the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips as a teen and started hustling at 14. But by 19, things changed. A trip to area with his dad and brother shifted his mindset. That experience inspired him to think bigger and focus on building something positive for his community. His stage name, Nipsey Hussle, was a nod to his grind. It was actually a playful take on the comedian Nipsey Hussle, given to him by a childhood friend who admired his hustle. Nipsey was all about resilience, ambition, and hope. His death left a void that still felt, but his legacy as a leader and visionary lives on. He co-founded the Marathon clothing store and started Vector 90, a co-working space designed to empower young people in Kensaw with opportunities in tech, science, and entrepreneurship. He also supported school improvements, mentored students, and used his voice to inspire others to rise above their circumstances. He was working on major projects like Destination Kensaw to celebrate Black culture, and even had a meeting scheduled with the LAPD to discuss reducing gang violence just days before he was tragically taken from us. When Nipsey passed, the world mourned. Fans, celebrities, and even former President Obama paid tribute. His funeral procession through South Central LA was massive, showing just how much love and respect people had for him. And even after his death, his impact didn't stop. His life inspired gang leaders to push for peace, with many agreeing to cease fires and holding summits to reduce violence. Nipsey Hussle wasn't just a rapper. He was a movement, a visionary, and a symbol of hope for so many. What was Nipsey for you? Tell us about it down below. And before you go, make sure to check this video out too.